All right. Well, I'm glad everyone's on. You guys are muted, but if you want your faces to show, unless you're, I don't know, you're like in a shower cap or something, I understand. I just like to see faces that are like nodding yes or no as I'm doing the presentation, but that's in your own discretion if you would like. So today, I'm going to be talking about depression and COVID-19. However, I'm not going to stay necessarily in depression the whole time, and just basically try to maintain hope and gratitude during this time. So look at these lovely pictures, right? Yeah, so as schools close for the remainder of the academic year, including movie theaters closing, parks are shut down, faith gatherings are not being gathered together right now, and sweet celebrations like welcoming in newborn babies, birthdays, graduations, weddings, and other memories that we want to commemorate, no one is unaffected by the pandemic that we are currently facing. Staggering numbers of increased panic, anxieties, stress, and even hysteria has been kind of added into the mix of what's going on. And if I could just be frank for myself, one of my best friends just had her second baby, and it is a little hard to know that it was just the doctors, herself, and her husband in the room. There wasn't any big welcoming celebration or party with family and friends because of everything that's going on and for the safety of herself along with the baby. It was definitely more of a humble welcoming and intimate for them, and coming home and basically now just being quarantined together. I know that's been hard, and for myself as a graduating senior, not having my graduation, at least it hasn't been canceled, it's been postponed. But right now, not having a graduation, it just definitely stings. So yeah, so this pandemic's definitely affected everyone, whether with COVID specifically or just things that we're not able to celebrate because of social distancing. I'm gonna read some quotes that the experts and smart people have said when it comes to social distancing. But even as a layperson, I could tell you that social distancing has definitely been something that's hard for myself, hard for my family and my friends, and even in how I tend to engage in learning. Learning, I like to, Mary Ellen knows this, I like to really dive deep by talking about things, and not being able to see people face to face has been pretty challenging for me. So Nicholas Kristofsky is a social scientist and physician at Yale University. And what he has said was, the coronavirus spreading around the world is calling on us to suppress our profoundly human and evolutionarily hardwired impulses for connection, seeing our friends, getting together in groups, or even touching each other. And I'm definitely someone that I love hugs. I feel loved when I get hugs. So not having that connection with my family and friends has been something that's hard for me. Um, Another thing about social isolation is, over long periods of time, social isolation can increase a variety of health problems, including heart disease, depression, dementia, and even death. The effects of short-term social distancing haven't really been well studied as of right now. Chronic social isolation increases the risk of mortality, which was done through a meta-analysis of by 29%, which to me is pretty staggering. Oh, thanks, Marianne. Just saw your um, just saw your note there. So because of that, I also wanted to add, sorry, another one by Jude Breyer says that because of social interaction and contact is such a fundamental need, we can suffer both physically and mentally without it. So yes, there is some physical things that happen when we are socially distancing. Obviously today I'm going to kind of talk about more of the mental system, systems that happen or symptoms that happen because of social distancing. And one illness, I will say, one illness that can so easily creep in during this time of uncertainty, and also because of social distancing specifically, and also isolation, is depression. Yeah, I said it, depression. It has somehow been perceived that it is okay to acknowledge that you have worries and anxieties. Like, it's okay to let someone know. One of my girlfriends, oh my goodness, I'm feeling anxious today. I have all these worries. It seems to be normal for that kind of talk. However, to admit to possibly dealing with depression seems to have ideas or implications that the person is weak-minded, or if you are affiliated with a faith, that somehow you're lacking in faith, or that you're incapable of handling crisis. So we still have a lot of stigma when it comes to deal with depression, whether that be clinical depression, momentary depression, whatever that looks like. So is it okay to have depression? Is it okay to deal with depression? I want to know what you guys think about that. Obviously, I will say that that's not the case. It's okay. You can be depressed or kind of suffer through moments of depression and not be weak-minded and not lack faith. If you're have a faith-oriented background, or that you are incapable of handling a crisis or stress. I will say that depression is actually very common, and it's when we realize how we can normalize it, that we know that it's something not only that it's common, but that it's also treatable. So the next slide, I just want to kind of explain a little bit what like depression kind of looks like, or how just understanding it a little bit more. So depression produces persistent feelings of sadness, helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, pessimism, or guilt. And if I can be frank, I feel like with COVID, with this social isolation and quarantine, I've definitely felt like felt helpless when it comes to helping others. I felt hopeless, like, are we ever going to get out of this situation? And even some pessimism, especially when we're going through something that could be traumatic or that could be seen traumatic. A lot of times it can affect your worldview of what's been going on. Another thing about depression, that it interferes with concentration, motivation, and other everyday functioning. And I feel like right now, with being students, I feel like that is definitely something that we have to look for and realize that because we're doing everything online and we're feeling a little down or a little depressed, that is what could be playing in why you're not being able to focus, why you could lack, getting up and being motivated to do your schoolwork or whatever that may be. Another thing about depression is that it's very complex, right? So it doesn't just stay in your head. What I mean by that is, yes, it affects your emotions, but it also can affect other areas of your being as far as physical. It could affect your immune system. It could actually weaken your immune system, which makes you more vulnerable to getting sickness. I'm just gonna also read what it says here. So Julie has said, something that she has MDD, and you wouldn't even know, but it has problems with the proper medication management therapy. I've been good. So yeah, and another thing about depression is that it can disrupt sleep. It interferes with appetite, which can contribute to weight loss or weight gain. So right now, if you feeling that you're constantly going to the cupboard or to the pantry and eating, you could be eating out of that feeling of depression, out of feeling of hopelessness, and not knowing what to do with yourself. So I'm just gonna go to the next slide. Yeah. So one way to combat depression, I would say, is through resilience or resiliency. The APA website that kind of defines resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. It is also seen as a developing personal growth. That's why I specifically chose this picture with the little plant that's growing from, it looks like sand. And I feel like a lot of times the best things that grow out of us is during times of adversity, is during times where we're able to grow our resiliency in the situations that we're in. So I feel like having that can eventually build up hope, and then build up, you know, an attitude of gratitude that I think will help us benefit us in this kind of what we're dealing with right now. So just go to the next slide. One thing about resiliency also, I wanted to mention that what it is not. So resilience is not something that some are born with and some are not. It's not that some people are chosen and they are just born with this over immense amount of resiliency and others are just like thrown at the curb. That's not how it is. Resiliency is not, and just because you have resilience, it doesn't mean that you somehow won't ever deal with emotional distress in your life. That's actually also not true. The ability to have resiliency can be learned with intentionality, but also with time. And then ways on building resiliency, which I thought this was pretty amazing. So prioritize relationships. To prioritize relationships would be connecting with others that others, and reminds you that it kind of reminds you that you're not alone. So even in this, even in the months of your depression, anxiety, whatever you're dealing with, when you're connecting with others, other students, other faculty, other staff, it tells you, man, I'm not alone. The things that I'm feeling, I'm not the only one feeling them. So really, so prioritize relationships, especially those one-on-one relationships, can build on your resiliency. Another one that's on here is join a group. So joining a group can be something that's faith-based community. It can be something that's a social support. I know people that have a disability during this time. So you know what they do? They connect with the disabled community through social media and say, hey, how are you guys doing? You know, now that we're enclosed and we're not able to go to therapy, I'm actually having more pain flare-ups, and you know what I'm saying? And they can kind of connect in that way. And I think that also builds on resiliency. Another one, I won't go into it because it's kind of self-explanatory, and I also think that Dr. Griswold kind of also talked about it in one of her webinars, was take care of your body. We know that sleeping well, having a good routine, eating healthy, and all those things. Another one is practice mindfulness. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean something like spiritual, but it definitely means like making sure you're centering yourself on the present and not focusing so much on, or oriented so much on the past or with the future and maybe how bleak it may look like. Is making sure that you're being present right now and what you could do right now. At the end of the presentation, I will have 2 videos up as well that are basically practicing mindfulness. Also, with building resiliency is finding purpose in the situation. So one way to finding purpose is helping others. I loved seeing so many different things that's going on right now with Facebook, Instagram, I mean, you name it. But can you guys, with being the fact that we have to be isolated, that we have to really not engage physical with people, can you guys in the chat give me examples of what you think would be helping others? What do you feel like is a way that you can help others, even though you're still wanting to respect the fact that we're in quarantine? Julie has wrote it and said, check in on your elderly neighbors. I agree. I know other people that have been doing that as well. Dr. G wrote, sending a care package to somebody who might need the encouragement. I love that. When we go for walks, we write messages of hope with chalk on the sidewalk. That's beautiful. I love that. Offering emotional support. Great, Tabitha. I love that. And then obviously positive notes. Yes, I love that. That's also great. Another, go to virtual game nights with friends. That's perfect. I love that one. That's giving me ideas. So another way of finding purpose is actually just also being proactive. So as a student, building that schedule, which we've kind of talked about a few weeks ago as our first like webinar, yeah, it's being proactive and like, I know I'm feeling this way. What could I do to combat how I'm feeling, or how can I be on top of my routine or on top of my assignments and things like that? That's kind of being proactive, and that can kind of build your self-efficacy, which will eventually build your resilience, but also looking for opportunities to self-reflect. When I think about that, I obviously think about gratitude, but I think about the past. I think about, man, what other times in my life where I was going through something that I couldn't see the light of day, but I imagined to not only get out of that, but I got out of that even stronger. Another one is seek help. This is something that also builds resiliency, is the fact that you know what, I can't do this on my own. Seeking help, it can be seeking help from a friend, seeking help from a clergyman, or seeking help by therapists. And that doesn't show you as weak, that actually shows that you're advocating for yourself and for your mental health. Another thing that I thought was beautiful about building resiliency that I looked up was learning from the past. Not only the past from your own past, but also the past of when other people, and looking at other people that's maybe dealt with the same thing, and how did they triumph over this. So because of that, I just thought, you know what, I think it would be nice to kind of look at the past as far as other countries and continents have dealt with the plagues and dealt with pandemics, and see how what came out of those things. So let's look back in the past. All right, so the first one that's coming to you is the plague of Cyprien. And so for this plague, it caused up to 5,000 deaths a day. This plague was basically devastating and lethal. The people that were infected with this plague had intestinal symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea. They had fever, deafness, blindness, and even paralysis. And although this plague was wreaking havoc during this time and what was going on, the people that were the Christians among this group of people, their response, it garnered actually a lot of admiration and hope. So I got a quote from Dionysius. I'm gonna butcher these names, I apologize. From Dionysius, who was the Bishop of Alexandria. And this is what Dionysius actually said about the Christians during this time. So most of our brother Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty. If I get emotional, I'm so sorry. Never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another. Heedless of danger, they took charge of the sick, attending to their every need and ministering to them in Christ. And with them departed this life serenely happy. For they were infected by others with the disease, drawing on themselves sickness of their neighbors and cheerfully accepting their plans. Many, in nursing and curing others, transferred their death to themselves and died in their stead. I'm not trying to say to try to be a nurse and go to someone who has COVID and try to take care of them, but I think this was beautiful in to acknowledge that they took the extra step to help others, and that built on their resilience and their hope. So kind of like what we said earlier, give me examples of how you can help. I would obviously use those more than these, but yeah, I thought that was beautiful. Another one is Cyprien, and he was also around during the Cyprien plague, and he was the Bishop of Carthage. What he had to say was, once the plague has swept through, Christians were stronger. They were stronger as proportion of society, since more of them survived. They had more resilience because they had a robust hope in the face of death, and they were stronger as communities, forging even closer bonds through the suffering they'd face. And I feel like because they were able to do it together. And imagine, they didn't have social media or anything like that, but there was definitely a lot of unity amongst a lot of death, amongst a lot of uncertainties, they were able to triumph. And I feel like that resilience and that hope they were able to build on that. So looking kind of in the past of these things, I think it's something that truly really does help. Another one was the Bubonic Plague, which was also known as the Black Death. So this definitely happened kind of all around Europe. So about this plague was shown first, it kind of showed up amongst sailors um, on the ships as they docked. They found them, basically they had all been perished and saw black boils on their bodies, sweeping in, and also this plague um, definitely had where the people had chills, they had fever, body aches, eventually obviously death. It wiped about 20 million people around the world, which is 1/3 of the continent's population. So this was definitely not a plague or a pandemic to be messed around with. But Martin Luther, who many people know who he is, this is what he had to say as he lived during the time of this pandemic. I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. Then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine and take it. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed in order not to become contaminated, and thus perchance inflict and pollute others and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. If God would wish to take me, he will surely find me and have done what he has expected of me, so I may not be responsible for either my own death or the death of others. If my neighbors need me, however, I shall not avoid place or person, but will go freely as they stated above. See, this is such a God-fearing faith because it is neither brash nor foolhardy. It does not tempt God. I love that because it definitely shows that we should still respect authority, right? And the authority right now of our nation is saying to stay indoors. The way that you can help people is to not infect them possibly if you have the COVID virus. Excuse me. So I love just looking at the past. I love that it shows that these people, even amongst so much adversity with what they were going on, there was, and I mean, 1/3 of the population, that's a big deal, right? There was still some kind of hope that they had in that, and that they didn't internalize it and look inward. They actually looked outward and cared about others and the ones that were going to be infected the most. So one way by learning from the past is basically ways to build gratitude, because I feel like out of those that we've kind of talked about, a lot of them had a certain sense of hope and gratitude. So I saw these from Good Therapy, which I thought were really good. Ways to build gratitude is write a list of 10 things you're grateful for. When the opportunity presents itself, ask other people what they are grateful for, which I think is great because sometimes someone else's perspective can really build on our own. Incorporate expressions of gratitude into your daily routine. For example, say what you're grateful for before the start of for a family dinner or any meal. When appropriate, post what you are grateful for publicly, either in Twitter or on Instagram posts. I've had a lot of my friends do that, and it really has helped me to also be more grateful in certain things. Find a gratitude mantra and repeat it regularly, and also meditate on it, which would be nice. So if you are someone that's affiliated with the Christian faith, it could be a certain scripture that talks about gratitude and what that may look like. Send handwritten notes of thanks in an era of digital communication. I love snail mail, so that's something that I know would touch my heart if someone sent me something. So I've actually considered doing that myself. And then when facing a difficult or challenging situation, ask yourself, what can I be grateful for in this situation? So yeah, so I loved these ways of building gratitude. Resources. So Love is Louder is an Instagram that you can find, an Instagram page that you can find on Instagram. It has tips, resources, and tools for taking care of your physical and mental health, and also just in supporting each other during this time of uncertainty. They also have a website, which is on there. If you are someone you know that is struggling emotionally and is having a hard time dealing with what is going on, maybe they lost someone because of COVID, you know what I'm saying? There's so many things that's out there. You could always email the Trinity Counseling Services at counseling@trinity.edu without the I's. But also you can text START to that number and you'll get a free confidential chat with a trained counselor. And it's 24/7, which I thought was really cool, which is why I wanted to add it in there. And then this is also the resources that I was talking about, the first of meditation. The first one is more of a breathing meditation. So there's really no talking. The video just tells you when to breathe in and out for how long. And the other one is more of a peace of mind, and it's someone that talks and helps you kind of like refocus and really clear your head. And so for next week, we're going to have practicing self-compassion during finals week. And Noelani Cortina, who is the counseling intern at Trinity Counseling Services, she will be doing that presentation. But if anything else, guys, thank you so much for just participating. And I just hope that you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday evening. See ya.